Sitting back on the road, back on the road, and back on the road, and back on the road. Steady as I go.
Hi folks, so thank you for stopping by. If you would like to learn how to build a camper van like this yourself, then please check out my other YouTube videos. So if you guys have found these videos helpful, you can help me out in a big way by picking up a copy of my first ever album that my brother and I recorded in Nashville late last year. Any proceeds will go to future recording projects, as well as taking the band on tour and hopefully promoting it. I'll leave a link in the description and talk a little bit more about it at the end of this video.
Okay, in the meantime, while I'm doing a few bits and bobs, I'm going to start applying the tiles into the kitchen unit here, so you can kind of see them roughly in place. I'm also going to have a few a little bit higher up, so we're going to show you how we do this next. So there they are, there's the tiles, looking lovely. They're going to add a really nice bit of colour to our van. So I got these tiles, I think they were a company called Caoba, spelled C-A-O-B-A. If you wanted to get these, if you're in the UK, I think they're based in Scotland somewhere. You can also get some Moroccan tiles. If you type in Moroccan tiles, Mexican tiles, something like that, you'll come up with all these lovely designs. These are all finished, which is pretty cool. Some of them you might need to add some sealant to them. So just be aware of that when you buy them, of course. So what I've done is I've put them on some MDF backing. So what we're basically going to do, what I'll end up doing, is we're going to put some Sikaflex on the back here. And that's going to adhere it to the MDF board, and then we're going to end up grouting it. I'm going to cut this to shape around the tiles, and yeah, then we'll grout it. So I'm using some things called tile spacers. So these are really handy because they'll give you a really nice even finish everywhere. So hopefully you can see this on the camera. You'll basically slot them in like so, and you'll put one on the other end as well down here. And it will make sure you get a really nice even gap all around. So when you actually adhere these, when you're using the Sikaflex, this is when you put them in place. So say we have a section here, for example, where I'm going to need a straight bit and one going up. You could take a pair of scissors and just cut off that bottom end to just create a T-section, and then I can just slot that T-section in there. So these are 3mm thick, these tile spacers. You can get ones that are thicker, just go with whatever you prefer. So I'm going to go around all of these now. I'm going to put these tile spacers in place so that I can basically then draw around all the tiles. I've got an idea of how I want it all to sit. Great, so just to show you quickly then, hopefully you can see where all the spaces are. So I've drawn all the way around my tiles. I'm going to remove them, but before I do that I want to take a photo of where they all are on my phone, and because some of these are slightly different sizes, I know that they all fit where they are at the moment, and I'm happy with the way they look. So photo taken, I can now go and remove all of these. Go ahead and cut your outline out. We've got some Sikaflex here. This is the Sikaflex 521. There's also the 221 which you can use as well. This is just the one that I had lying around. It's really good because it's a very strong adhesive, and it also deals with the vibrations of the vehicle very well. So there's no chance that these are going to come away because it's cracked or anything. What we're going to do is start putting all of our tiles back in place. Make sure your board is nice and clear, and that your tile is nice and clear, and then you can go ahead and add some of your sealant to the back. So there's not loads on there, but what I'll do is I'll put it in place, and I'll just move it around a little like so. Okay. I'm going to put these in place as well. Press down nice and firmly. Yeah, and then just basically go ahead and do this to all the tiles. What I'm doing next then is I'm cutting the height of the supporting pieces of timber behind our tile board here. So I'm going to have 1, 2 here of the same size and 1, 2 of here of the same height, and then I'm going to have 2 longer ones across the top there. So I'm going to measure the height of those different areas and then I'm going to cut them to size. So this is the back of our board. This will be backed up against our wall. We'll have pieces like this. So then I've taken the measurements of the height. As you can see, I've got 2 on that side, there's 2 on the other side, and then I've got 2 longer pieces in the middle there. They're all cut to the same width, so that was all 7 centimeters they're coming out by. I've got the angle in as good as it will be. I'm going to be then placing some pine over the top of these to finish it all off. So now that's done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm basically going to glue all these pieces down. As you can see, I use my drill just to prop it up into place, just to check it fits, which it does very nicely now, so I can go ahead and glue it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply glue this on and then I'm going to clamp it, okay? I'm going to butt that right up against the top there. Alright, so next up then I want to put my tile board into place. Now that we have everything here, we can go ahead and start dealing with this. So I'm going to use some Gorilla wood glue and I'm going to apply it very liberally all around these back plates that I've added, and then we can go ahead and put it in place. Great, so I'm just going to leave that all to dry off. As you can see, I've popped a few pieces of timber across there just to push that top part up against the wall to make sure it glues. It would be better if I had screwed the backboard in first and then tiled it. I've forgotten, so I need to leave my glue to dry overnight before I can do any extra work. But if you have screwed it, you can now go and put your tiles on. You can continue working around it onto the next stages. So we're going to go ahead and do our trim now. So I'm going to be using some tongue and groove that we had earlier. I'm going to cut off the actual tongue part on this piece, and we're basically going to be placing it around all these areas and then gluing it up. So the first thing I've done then is I've just measured the width of the very bottom part of here and cut this pretty much down to size, and then we're going to go ahead and scribe around this curved edge of the wall so it will butt up really nicely and have a nice clean finish. So take your measurements here for your width, and if you've got a scribe up the wall, if you don't have straight walls, then we'll do that next. So there we have our line. So we'll go and cut that with a jigsaw. Let's have a look. That's not too bad. So I've just got a little bit of sandpaper here. I'm just going to take off any splintering off these edges. So the last thing I want to do then is just create a 45-degree angled cut across here. I'm going to do that on every piece of timber that joins across here. This is just to give it a nice aesthetic look. So we're going to go ahead and use my pencil to draw a line across the back. Okay, and then I know to cut it there at that 45-degree angle. Turn your chop saw to a 45-degree angle. You can go ahead and make a cut following the line. Great, so there we have it. When we come to putting the other piece on, we'll put that at a 45-degree angle, and that will have a really nice finish to it. Great, so just go ahead and cut all your pieces to size now. Just make sure that you factor in the width of your piece of timber on the side as well. So if you're measuring from there
to here. Don't just measure up to there, you need to make sure that you can fit that 45-degree cut into. So go ahead, do all of that, and I'd start putting it all in place as you go, just to check that it all fits with one another, and then we can go ahead and glue it. Also, just to mention as well, I've set the depth of each piece to basically fit flush with the tile itself, so that when we grout it later, that grout will sit nicely within the two joins. Cool. Great. Great, so there we have it. All of our framing in place. And as you can see, I've just put it into place just to check that it all fits as I've been going along. We're going to now take these all off, and I'm going to go ahead and sand it, starting with a fairly coarse sandpaper down to a finer grit like 240 to get it nice and smooth, and take off these little black marks that have come off from the table saw and everything, and then we can go ahead and glue it. So what we want to do now is just go ahead, make sure there's no debris on it, just give it a quick wipe, and then we're going to use some of our Gorilla Wood glue once again. Next up then, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grout all of my tiles. So the first thing I've done is I've just made sure I've really covered up all of these areas, just using some bubble wrap that I have lying around. You can use a tarpaulin or whatever. This is quite a messy job, you just want to make sure all of your areas are protected, and I've put some masking tape all around these edges just to make sure nothing spills over. One thing I will say is it would be a lot easier for me to grout all this if I hadn't already installed my cooker and my sink. So if you haven't already, it's going to be a lot more accessible if you do this first and then install those parts. So the grout we're using today is the Mapai, I believe they're pronounced, Ultra Color Plus. It's a flexible, mold resistant and water repellent grout. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of vibrations in our van as we're driving along. So the fact that it's flexible will help the tiles and the grout to deal with that and stop it from cracking. You need to basically follow the manufacturer's instructions that are written on the back. It can be different for each one. You can get some grout that's already made up, that's just ready to apply, but this stuff we have to mix with water. So for this I'm going to use 1 kilo, and then I'm going to need 210 to 230 millilitres of water as well to mix it. So I've got some scales here that I've borrowed from my mum and dad's house whilst they're away. And I'm going to pour out 1 kilo. So when you're mixing this, ideally you want to be wearing some protective gloves and some protective glasses. I don't actually have any gloves, so I'm going to have to be very careful with this right now. I'm basically going to go ahead and pour this water in, and then I'm just going to mix it all together. Being very careful not to get it on myself. So you can get this grout in different colours. This is a white one. You can also get black and grey, so you kind of go with whatever suits you. And then according to this particular brand, we just need to leave it for about 2 to 3 minutes after we've initially poured it all together, and then we'll give it a little stir again, and then we'll be able to then apply it to our tiles. Okay, so it's been a few minutes now, so I'm just going to give it another brief mix again, and then I'm basically going to apply our mixture using a squeegee. So we have a couple of these. I'll show you what we've got. So I've got this one, which is pretty massive, and probably we'll just do these top tiles. And then we've got this smaller squeegee here that we can use to press against there. So we'll just pick some up out of our bucket, and then we can apply it, just being careful that we don't drop it everywhere. We're literally just going to apply it into those joints. Don't worry, there's loads of excess at the moment. You just want to try and get it into those joints as best as you can. But you can see you can kind of carry away some of the excess as well, which we'll do a little bit later. Just do your best to go around, smooth it all out, and if there's any excess remaining, especially on the tile faces, you can go ahead and wipe those off. I've tried taking away as much of the excess as I can off the actual tiles themselves. There's a little bit of a haze over the top, but after letting that sit for between 15 and 30 minutes, I'm going to take a damp sponge and go over it and clean all of this up. Okay, so I'm just using a standard sponge for this. I'm just going to damp it, don't want it really wet, and then wipe it across our tiles. Okay, so that's our grouting job pretty much complete. As you can see, it's not too much of a stressful task to do, and it gives it a nice finish. So what we've done is we've washed our sponge out frequently, and I've come over here and just taken off most of that haze as I've gone along. The more you wash out the sponge, the more excess you're going to be able to take off, and just make sure you smooth all those edges with the sponge as you brush past. So there may be a small amount of haze left. We can come back tomorrow after we've left it to dry overnight and just buff that out. But for now I'm going to remove all the masking tape and all of this and then just leave it to dry. So I've let that dry overnight, and I've got some fresh clean water and my sponge again, and I'm just going to go over this with the sponge. I'm just taking all the moisture out so it's damp, that it's not really moist, and we'll just basically buff up all of this. There's just a very light haze across the tiles, so by doing this we'll just clean any residue off and then it's all done. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Another job we can tick off the list. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Please like and subscribe and check out our other content on all things camper. As I mentioned before, I've just recorded my first album. We'll need all the help I can get, so I'll leave you with an album preview for now and a link in the description if you'd like to pick up a copy.
Joe Edwards is de naam. Zijn album heet Keep On Running en daarvan hoorde je het nummer Trouble.
Le couple seachtain nuas leis an album nua seo leis Keep On Running.
Joe Edwards from the UK. Don't let the bastards get you down. Yeah, right.
Que sale el 22 de mayo a través de Tiny Mountain Records. Aquí está Joe Edwards.
Well, ain't a feeling right. Been burning up in the night. Yeah, but I can't tell when it's gonna end. So keep on running, gotta keep on running through the heat. Well, you got it. Well, I'm $6 short, but my soul is clean. I need one more time. Well, set the fuel lights on. Well, 20 minutes from home. Yeah, but before I get there, yeah,